Small Changes by Digits 27, Chapter 21, Same Old Morning. When Uncle walked down the stairs that morning, although it was close to 10 o'clock already, she was supposed to see Naruto resting on the couch, still in his full mission outfit minus the bulky flak jacket. Naturally, she was clad in little more than a rather immodest set of underwear and had a bowl of steaming ramen held in her hands, noodles dangling comically from her lips. However, she quickly sucked them up with a noisy slurp as she grinned mischievously. With the grace of a cat, she vaulted the banister of the stairs without a sound, quietly sneaking up on her dozing boyfriend. Just as she was about to jump the couch and playfully land on his chest, though he cracked open a single eye. "I'm surprised and amused that in almost 13 years you still aren't able to sneak up on me," he said with a small yawn, stretching his arms out as Uncle pouted cutely. After a moment, though, she bounced back and went to sit on her boyfriend's chest anyway, still happily slurping down her noodles. "That's not true. Remember that thing with the Mokuton user in your Ambu team a few months back?" Her words were muffled by the food in her mouth that she refused to put down, but Naruto got the gist of it and quickly shuddered. It wasn't a pleasant memory by any stretch of the imagination. "You said you wouldn't talk about it anymore anyway. Tenzo is supposed to be a village secret. Don't go talking about him so casually, at least until the Hokage decides it's time he steps into the light." Uncle shrugged as she shifted her position like a dog attempting to get comfortable. Eventually she worked herself so she was practically lying on Naruto, her head resting in the crook of his neck, and her body rather ungracefully sprawled out over him. "Whatever. I thought it was hilarious," she chuckled to herself as she continued downing her breakfast ramen. One didn't live with an Uzumaki for so long without developing some strange eating habits, although that wasn't to say she didn't already have some. "So anything changed while I've been gone?" he asked conversantly. The team had gotten in rather late that night, so he had been hoping to get more sleep in, but, well, Uncle was Uncle, so he was up now. "Well, the Hokage asked me to proctor for the second stage of the tuning exams. I guess that means they'll be pretty soon." Naruto widened his eyes a little. He had almost forgotten about the exams. "Probably in a month or two. That should be time to get you gaining some more C ranks, right?" Naruto just shrugged noncomically, but Uncle didn't even seem to notice. "Speaking of C ranks, how was debasing yourself for the kiddies?" Naruto snorted as he shifted position, so Uncle was lying next to him as opposed to on him. "It's not debasing myself. Somebody has to be there for them when they learn how to handle themselves on missions. A Chunin wouldn't be ready. Jonin have more maturity and a better understanding of the responsibility." He looked over to Uncle, only to blink and see she managed to smear the ramen broth all over her mouth and chin. "In most cases." The woman looked up at him and blinked, looking too cute with noodles dangling from the corner of her mouth. Naruto chuckled as he leaned in to kiss her, simultaneously cleaning up the ramen broth on her face. "I told you that you were a ramen addict," Uncle couldn't help but say with a smirk as Naruto leaned back, licking his lip with a satisfied grin. "There's nothing better than ramen in the morning. What can I say? It's a win-win. A kiss from my favorite girl and a taste of my favorite food." His smirk only grew seeing his purple-haired girlfriend blush slightly. She quickly tried to divert his attention, though. So tell me about it. I bet that it was eventually eventful considering you were on the mission. Your Ombu squad all call you a trouble magnet behind your back, you know," she added with a flourish of her chopsticks, making Naruto smile. He did in fact know, and the title was likely well deserved. "I resent that. The trouble I draw only makes things more exciting," he rebutted, only to get poked on the chest with one of Uncle's chopsticks. "Get on with it," she pressed, only to have her boyfriend chuckle and relent as he ran through what happened on the mission, only occasionally interrupted by Uncle's comments or laughter, especially when he regaled Zabuza's fight. In the end, though, she had to get dressed and report in for a mission of her own, and he needed to go meet his team, so they both went their separate ways, but not before Uncle caught Naruto at the door by jumping on his back. "I missed you, Naru-kun," she practically purred as she nuzzled her cheek up against his from behind. The redhead just cocked an eyebrow, as it was rare to see his usually fiery girlfriend this affectionate. "I thought coming out of Ambu would mean we'd have more time together, and then you go away on weeks-long missions anyway." Naruto chuckled as he awkwardly hugged Anko in reverse. It's only until my getting become tuning. Then I'll have all the time I want with you, he intoned with a softer voice than normal. Uncle just grinned as she flipped over him and gave him a light punch in the arm, ever the master of mixed signals. Then you better train Emma faster, Sensei-san, she replied playfully before jogging off to the mission assignment building. Naruto just watched her go with a grin. He'd just have to see how it went. I, Naruto Namikaze, decline entering any of my genin from Team 7 in the upcoming Chunin exams. There were a few hushed whispers from the assembled Jonin sensei behind him, as well as the few academy instructors allowed in for their insight. In front of him, the Hokage raised the rather surprised eyebrow of the three in front of him. He would have thought Naruto the most likely to enter his team. Currently, they were all in the man's office, undergoing the standard procedure to find out which current genin would be allowed to enter. Beside him, Anko and Kurenai looked equally confused and shocked. After all, Naruto was thought to be the strongest among them, and the general thought was that his team would reflect that. They had continued their meetings on occasion, and Kurenai knew Naruto was rather proud of his team and their abilities both individually and as a unit. It confused her then why he would be so unwilling to allow them to advance as shinobi. Are you sure, Naruto? Your team's mission record is rather impressive for such fresh genin, even with their inexperience. I am certain nobody will argue with your choice to have them enter, the aged Hokage added, suddenly hoping to change the young sensei's mind. Sasuke Uchiha was in his team, and as the last loyal member of the clan in Konoha, he would make a good showing. In the back of the room, one Iruka Umino looked ready to comment before Naruto beat him to it with a quick shake of his head. My genin may be prepared for the challenge, but I would like to take time and consolidate their skills first. That way, their first showing in the Chunin exams will also be their last. Kurenai was a little surprised, even though she felt she shouldn't be, at how easily and confident the teen spoke. He seemed so utterly certain it made her own conviction seem weak. She was proud of her team, but after Naruto's insight, she was rethinking her own choices. An excellent and most youthful decision, my young friend. I myself thought the same thing of my own genin when their first Chunin exams came about. A large, exuberant, and all-green jonin called out from the crowd of sensei. I may have taken their first chance away, but I told myself that by their next chance I would have them all ready to advance, or I would make myself run a lap of Hi no Kuni. A few of the sensei in the crowd gave the man rather odd looks and took a few steps from him. Thank you, Guy, the Hokage quickly interjected before the rather loud man could continue. A small sigh escaped his lips. Well then, if Naruto is sure, then Kurenai, if you could continue. The raven-haired woman nodded before hesitating a second, first looking at Naruto, then down at her own hands. Finally, though, she nodded to herself and let out a small breath, reaffirming her decision. I, Kurenai Yuhi of Squad 8, would like to enter all three of my genin students, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Unozaka, and Chino Aburame. There were a few more whispers around the room as Asuma quickly proceeded to do exactly the same for his own team. Naruto raised an eyebrow but said nothing, simply moving back into the crowd as the other jonin got their say over their own teams. Guy's loud exclamations for his team's success included. I'm not sure if I agree with your decision, but I certainly respect it if you believe your genin are ready, Naruto offered as he walked with Kurenai out of the meeting. Asuma somewhere on their trail and within earshot. Kurenai smiled weakly at the affirmation, bringing her hand up to rub one of her shoulders as she bit her lips slightly. To be honest, I walked into that meeting perfectly confident with my decision, she huffed in mock frustration as she lightly hit Naruto on the arm. Then you had to ruin it by not entering your team. I thought for sure you would. Naruto shrugged carelessly, running a hand through his spiky hair with an easy grin. They are ready for it. I just want to be sure is all. Plus, it would be nice to have all their Chunin exam be out of the village to give them a taste of the wilder shinobi world in a more controlled environment. He responded as Asuma joined them. The older Jonin naturally smoked away as he always was, like father, like son. The exams are pretty dangerous all the same. Wouldn't it be better to at least make sure their first time is in their home? Naruto shrugged again at Asuma's offer to the conversation. Can't treat them like kids forever. My sensei was always for throwing us in the deep end. the redhead replied, only to get a barking laughter from the other Sarutobi. True enough, but then you were on a team with Itachi Uchiha. To that, Naruto just raised an eyebrow. So why did you enter your teams? Do you really think they're ready? Kurenai looked at the redhead challengingly for that. Maybe not, but I think it will serve as a confidence booster for Hinata and a reality check for Kiba. Shino, on the other hand, I think is completely ready. Asuma chuckled at her assessment of her team and nodded with another puff from his cigarette. Ain't that the truth? I'm hoping this will finally kickstart my team into gear by showing them how far ahead other kids of their level are. He spoke through the chortles, breathing out a large cloud of smoke afterwards. I hope you guys are alright. I'll see you guys later. Both sensei waved Naruto off as he suddenly vanished in a flash of red, causing Asuma to grumble slightly. Show off. Kurenai just chuckled softly behind her hand. Hey, Sensei, what gives? Ino told me that. Ah, Sensei, where are your clothes? Sakura screeched as she entered the clearing where Team 7 usually trained. Ame and Sasuke quick on her heels. However, they found their sensei with his legs hooked around the branch of a tree, performing inverted crunches, and all he had on was the headband around his arms and a set of rolled black pants. Oh, hey, Sakura, Ami, Sasuke. Naruto quickly finished his set and let his body fall back to the ground before flipping and catching himself in a crouch. For a moment, the Sakura's mouth worked uselessly like a fish out of water, and she looked at his exposed body before shaking her head and collecting her thoughts, but not without a small blush. Ino told me that she and her team have been entered for the tuning exams. She finally managed to get out, only to have Naruto stare at her for a good few moments before blinking once. And, deciding Sakura was taking too long, Sasuke decided to weigh in. So where are permission forms? Again, Naruto just stared blankly at the Uchiha before shrugging namely, There aren't here. Sasuke's eyes twitched at the way the redhead was blatantly mocking them and just barely concealing his amused smile. Why not? He ground out through gritted teeth, expecting another sarcastic or flippant response. He was surprised then when Naruto's expression suddenly sobered, apparently having had his fun and deciding to get serious. I haven't entered you three as your sensei. I would hope you trust my judgment. I only have what is best for you guys in mind when I do these things. Sasuke was ready with a counter though, as the young Uchiha took a step forward. How is it in our best interest to be held back from progressing in our careers? He shot at Naruto, who only raised an eyebrow and leaned against the tree, still unashamedly naked from the waist up. You have only been a genin for a few months. What makes you believe you are ready to progress to a chunin? Sasuke just growled, his hand clutching into a fist. I'm ready! He shouted angrily, only to blink in surprise and flinch as Naruto flicked a pebble into his forehead faster than he could see, causing him to rub at it vigorously to make it stop hurting. Not with that kind of attitude. As a chunin, you will be expected to fill in team leader roles, and if you fly off the handle every time something doesn't go your way, you will not make an effective leader or chunin. Still seeing that Sasuke wasn't listening properly, Naruto sighed, leaning towards his nearby pile of clothes and slipping his shirt back on. Look, the Chunin exams are mostly a public stunt anyway. Most promotions come from field work after your performance is reviewed in a number of missions. Within a year, you would probably get it anyway with your individual skill levels. At that, he noticed the kunoichi of his team widen their eyes at his frank assessment. However, Sasuke didn't seem satisfied. Exactly, it's publicly, and if we do well in the exams, then we attract clients, which means better and more challenging missions. Sasuke argued, apparently not willing to give up on this just yet. However, Naruto was ready with an easy smile and a quick retort. Ah, but publicity is a double-edged sword. Make a bad showing or face a far superior opponent that could easily beat you, and you run the risk of pushing potential clients away from you. However, Sasuke still looked determined, if a little thrown off by having his argument turned against him. But that's only if we do so. I'm strong enough, so why shouldn't I compete now? Naruto sighed and rubbed his temples for a moment. Why did he have to get the obstinate Uchiha? Because the tuning exams is a team event and I want all of you to make a good showing. To do that, I want to give you the most training I can before I enter you. Don't worry, in 6 months I'm sure you'll be ready to blow through the competition. Sasuke seemed to falter at that, and for the first time in the conversation, Ame spoke up. You were going to enter us in the next exam? Naruto nodded to the violet, turning back to Sasuke with a knowing smile. It will be held in Takegakure. That will be better from a publicity standard, as you will have a far more diverse range of clients watching. Here in Konoha, certain grudges keep villages like Iwo and Kumo from competing, whereas in the more neutral Taki, every village will enter candidates. That seemed to slightly dissuade Sasuke, but the boy still didn't seem quite convinced. So Naruto went for the killer. Plus, from what we learned in Wave, Kiri has just come out of a civil war. They'll still be unstable right now and likely won't enter the exams, but in 6 months, I'm sure they'll be ready. Seeing he had caught the Uchiha's attention, he agreed and continued. Kirigakure haven't ever competed in a Chunin selection exam due to various internal reasons. However, with the change in leadership, I'm sure the new Mizukage will want to show just how strong her village is, and they'll likely send their very best. Finally, Sasuke seemed sated as his sensei dangled the challenge of Kiri's best in front of his face. See, I know what I'm doing. He turned and gave Ame a cheeky wink. Haku will be there. The girl immediately dropped her head to hide her sudden blush, both at the wink and at the possibility of seeing the soft-spoken Yuki again. I think Sensei is right. We should trust him more. The youngest Uzuki spoke after a few moments of silence, and after a couple of hesitant seconds, Sakura nodded with her. To be honest, the pinkette didn't actually believe herself ready for the Chunin exams. She just didn't want to lose out to Ino. Sasuke took the longest, but eventually Naruto's logic won out, and he nodded with obvious reluctance. Fine, but you said you would train us to blow right through the competition. You better follow through, Sasuke asserted with as much dominance as he could muster. Naruto grinned at the boy and stuck his hand out, which the boy quickly grabbed and shook. It's a promise. Maybe there was hope for Sasuke as a leader yet. Gurin hugged her knees to her chest as she aimlessly scowled at the far wall of her small prison cell. She wasn't sure how long she had been in here now, but between the occasional interrogation and the time she had been fed, she would guess around 2 months. It was hard to keep track though, with no natural light down in the Ambu soldier cells, and all that time though, despite their attempts to cause her harm or psych her out with their little mind games, Gurin hadn't broken. They were so intent on getting any information she had on Orochimaru that their continued frustrations at her were the only thing keeping her going. She knew eventually she would find a way out. It was only a matter of time that or her master would come and save her. She was a valuable follower, and he wouldn't simply leave her here. She had to believe that for her sanity's sake. However, Konoha certainly hadn't made it easy on her. Even now she could feel only dregs of the chakra that used to flow through her like a river. Something about this room forced it to be suppressed to the bare minimum that wouldn't kill her, and she couldn't even produce the most meager of crystals. It was that damn Namikaze's fault. He was the one who had captured her. Only after letting slip about her allegiance to Orochimaru in a fit of anger had he taken any real interest in her, though. He had decided to take her and the subordinates of hers that survived back to Konoha for interrogation. So now she was here, waiting for either the next time she would be dragged into the dark dank with its single solitary chair and another visitor from Scarhead, or it would be the skittering sound of the metal tray with her dinner sliding beneath the slight gap of her cell bars. However, it turned out that it was neither, as the familiar mop of red hair appeared outside of her cell. How are we today, Gurin-chan? Comfy? Naruto's whimsical voice echoed through the small space. All he got for his trouble, though, was the blue-haired woman spitting in his general direction. Come to offer your pathetic platitude against Namikaze, maybe to try and dissuade me of my loyalties. She huffed and drew further in on herself. She just wanted to be left alone until she could figure a way out of this place, or have Orochimaru rescue her. I just thought we could talk, he offered, only to have Gurin snort, unfurling slightly to glare at the redhead as he absently tossed one of her crystals up and down. Obviously, he had continued to supply it with chakra, or it likely would have dissipated by now. She wondered why he would do so. What is this? The good samurai, bad samurai routine? Her voice was a little hoarse from disuse, but she was glad that she could still get her skating tone across as Naruto casually leaned on the bars, draping his arms through and continuing to toss the little crystal back and forth. It was nothing special to her, just a vaguely hexagonal pink crystal the size of a fist. I was actually hoping to learn a bit more about your ability. I've never seen anything quite like it, and it doesn't seem to match the test the cryptologist department did for any known Kekkei. All the redhead got for his trouble was the continued glare, though as he quickly sighed and backed off the bars. I bet he got you young, right? For the moment the glare was broken, as Goran blinked in surprise. Orochimaru, I bet he got to you when you were young. The glare returned full force as he referred to her master in such a casual manner. He saved me, she shot back, her eyes burning furiously. She wasn't then expecting the look of pity in the Jonin's violent eyes. Do you think he'll come and save you now, after failing him like you have? Gurren growled lightly, unfurling further and getting to her feet. She was a little paler than their last confrontation, and a little skinnier too. Ibiki may not have been one for physical violence or in torture and interrogation, but he wasn't above physical warfare like depriving his prisoners of food. What do you know of Orochimaru-sama? However, Gurren's anger was met by nothing but the melancholy, almost blank stare. It caused her to falter momentarily. More than you, in your rose-tinted illusion of that monster, would ever like to know. Gurren's hands clenched into a fist at the slide on the snake's awning. She didn't get a chance to rebuke, though, as Naruto shook his head and allowed an easy smile to return to his features. But I didn't come to talk about that traitor. No, that's Ibiki's job. He held up the little crystal again. So what do you know about your abilities? The cryptonologist department wanted me to ask if it were a Kikitota. Seeing the conversation steering away from a tentative subject, Gurren just sneered and sat back down in her corner of the cell, content to ignore the redhead until he left. It's damn strong stuff. There isn't much the Rasengan can't easily grind right through. To demonstrate, she watched as that familiar ball of whirling blue energy flashed into life in his palm like a bulb being flicked on. He smashed the violet sphere of chakra into her crystal, and for a few moments nothing happened before finally a single crack slid across its surface. In seconds, the perfect little crystal was reduced to nothing but shards and dust, and the Rasengan slowly faded out of sight. It's impressive, I have to admit, Naruto offered congenially, only to see Gurren looking away from him. Curled up on herself again, he sighed before waving uselessly, seeing he wasn't getting anywhere. I'll be back at some point. Nobody can stay quiet forever. He took another look of the teen that reminded him so much of a younger Anko before turning to leave. He never noticed the single shard of crystal, no bigger than a toothpick, that slid into Gurren's cell. She held the little fragment, watching it slowly pulse with life as a grin spread over her lips. Anko lounged on one of the couches into the tower at the center of Training Ground 44. The second task of the Chunin selection exams was underway, and she was carefully keeping watch over the proceedings through the various video cameras set up about the forest. In front of her, around a dozen television screens kept her and the Jonin sensei around her informed of the events within the training ground. Damn! The kiddies are going to have to watch out for that one, Uncle muttered to herself, looking up at the top right screen containing the gory results of a clash between Asuna and Ami team. Whoever clash would have been a bit graceful to the Ami team. It had been a massacre thanks to the red-haired boy with the giant gourd of sand. Makes me glad I didn't enter my team. Naruto's voice spoke up from right behind her, nearly making Uncle fall backwards over the couch in shock. However, she caught herself and glared at the smirking redhead, who simply wrapped his arm around his girlfriend and settled back into the couch. They aren't ready for someone like him, Uncle huffed, blowing a stray hair away from her eyes and folding her arms under her chest. I hate when you scare me like that, she muttered again, trying to focus on the screens and not the way Naruto's hands was gently massaging her shoulder. I know, it's why I do it, he shot back amusingly, and a moment later, Anko just sighed and leaned into his side, unable to remain angry. She would, however, be planning a way of getting back at him, though, as was only natural in the Namikaze household. So how come you're here? Interested in the next generation of shinobi? She asked as she worked herself into a more comfortable position, much to the amusement of the jonin around them. Nah, they're never going to be as awesome as us anyway, he casually replied, a playful grin on his features. My team just got a mission to escort some actress called Yuki Fujikaze on her next shot. I may be gone for a week or two, so I thought I'd let you know. The mention of the actress got Naruto some interested looks, both from Anko and the jonin around them. Yuki Fujikaze? Uh, Fujikaze? As in the one from those cheesy Princess Gale movies? Anko asked with some incredulity. Naruto just shrugged. I suppose. Is that what she's from? I thought she seemed familiar. He responded with a shrug. Not really too concerned about just who he was escorting, as long as it was good experience for the beginning. Oh yeah, remember you took me to see one of her films a few months ago? Naruto could honestly say he couldn't remember that all too well, movies never having been his thing, but he nodded all the same. Anyway, have to be going. He kissed Uncle quickly as he got up, earning a few jealous looks from the surrounding jonin, still trying to watch the second round. Oh, thought you should know it's only Asuma's team in the second round. Kurai's dropped out during the first test, Uncle casually offered as she returned to catching the screens. As proctor, she had to watch for cheating or infractions, like opening the scrolls early. Oh, really? That was Ibiki's round, wasn't it? Uncle nodded enthusiastically. Naruto had a sneaking suspicion Uncle looked up to Ibiki somewhat as a successful TNI head of department. He supposed that was just her slightly sadistic side showing, though. Yeah, really flushed them out this time. Only had a few left for me. Naruto just nodded as he gave his girlfriend a quick wave before flashing out. He didn't want to interrupt her too long while she was working. Naruto hurried through the tree branches, barely paying attention to what was passing by as he ran. He and his team had only just gotten back from Yuki, now Haori no Kuni, from their disastrous but ultimately successful mission. His team was naturally tired, and he himself was looking forward to going home and seeing his girlfriend after 2 weeks. However, minutes after delivering the mission report to Hokage, and then Ambu dropped down from the shadows to whisper startling news in his ear, so now he was running towards the training ground. 3. Emerging from the tree line and quietly dropping down onto the grass, he spotted who he was looking for. Eugels knelt in front of the monument, her head bowed and her normally ever-present cat mask a few feet away from her. Just before her lay a sword Naruto recognized as belonging to Hayate Gecko, Eugeo's fiancée, only it was covered in light spattering and blood. He closed his eyes for a moment in response before quietly walking until he was just behind Eugeo. He stayed there a while as Eugeo continued to kneel in silence before the simply black stone carved with so many important names. Naruto himself had spent a lot of time here as a kid, just looking at the names of his mother, father, and sister. Taicho, I don't know what to do now. Eugeo finally managed to get out a quiet sob that racked her body. Naruto crouched down and placed a hand on her shoulder, as he had before when the Anbu served under him had lost comrades. Only this was different. He wasn't here as a captain, he was here as a friend. You know I can't tell you that, Eugeo, but I know Hayate wouldn't have wanted you to hold on to this. After a few moments he received a weak nod, but the woman continued to simply stay there, staring at the bloodied blade. I want revenge. On who did this? Naruto nodded from behind her, knowing the feeling well and also understanding the shadows that lay on that path. That's okay. I'm sure they will be brought to justice. He got another shuddering nod that did nothing to convince him that she was okay. I thought that maybe I should leave the Ambu, another thing Naruto was used to hearing. the core tended to take its toll on people, and it wasn't uncommon to drop out after losing people. I wouldn't argue with you if you felt that way. However, you're strong, Eugenio. In a few months, I'm sure you'll make captain. You'll have a lot more freedom, and you may even be able to track down just who did this, if Konoha hasn't already. He didn't mean to sound cold, but he knew he had to be the voice of reason against Eugenio's unstable emotional state. It's hard, Taicho. Eugenio looked up, and he could see the tears that had dried on her cheeks, as well as the fresh ones percolating in her eyes. Gently he pulled her into a hug that she gratefully accepted. How many times do I have to tell you, Jujiao? I'm not your Taucho anymore. All he got for his poor attempt at cheering her up was a small, shuddering chuckle into his chest. After a few more quiet moments, Yujiao pulled away and wiped at her eyes, glancing back down to the sword on the ground. I thank you, Naruto. I needed that. The redhead just nodded with a small, comforting smile as he stood up and helped the Violet to her feet. No problem. Me, your other friends, and your sister are all here for you. As if speaking of the devil, they both suddenly felt a small presence rushing into the clearing. Yuji Oni! Ami ran over the grass as fast as she could, slamming into her sister with a warm hug that she tried to pour all her emotions through. I heard what happened to Hayate. I'm so sorry, Yuji Oni. Yujiro simply accepted the embrace, kneeling down slightly to better hug her younger sister and bury her face into her dark purple hair, so like her own. Seeing that he was now intruding on a private moment between family, Naruto sank back into the shadows silently before leaving. He was sure Yujiro would pull through this. She was strong and she had support. Now Naruto wanted to return to his family, the whole experience reminding him just how fleeting it could be. End of chapter 21.